Martin, actually, on the subject of managers and in the subject of Scotland, Rangers have got themselves a new manager. Frank Lampard was on the shortlist, didn't get it. Kevin Muscat on the shortlist, didn't get it. Philippe Clement, in he comes. Former Monaco, Club Bruges head coach. Philippe Clement has been given a 3.5-year deal. So, what would you say when I stop? What would you say thereafter? Philippe Clement, welcome to Glasgow and
just win. Win some football
Bon
matches.
chance.
Yeah, win some football matches. You have to overtake Celtic. Really simple as that. That's what you have to do. And you don't have to, you need to do that relatively quickly. And that's the point. No, listen, he will be given a couple of weeks respite. And then you have to get on with it. And it's none of this here. Please do not come in and say you've got a 3-year plan or something like this here, or I want to see the youth players being developed, which I think you might be able to do. But no, you've got to win, and you've got to start, and you win immediately. Right.
It begs the question, and only time will tell, Simon, have they got the right man? So Frank Lampard, you were not a fan of Frank's in terms of being in the shortlist, and you didn't think he should get the job, although it's my understanding Graeme Souness did think he was the man for the job.
Yes, and Graeme was obviously very critical of it.
Because Frank demonstrated, apparently, even though he's got more money than God, a real hunger to succeed with Rangers. But he didn't get it.
Yeah,
Muscat didn't get it.
Yeah, I mean, Graeme didn't think Roberto De Zerbi was going to be a manager, so we'll take each of those in isolation. I am not sure. The reason why I didn't like Lampard is because I think it was more about the argument for rather than my argument against. Okay, tell me why. If you want to put Lampard in a dugout at Rangers, tell me why. Oh, because he was a great player. Now tell me another reason why. Like, tell me why you want Birmingham to get Rooney, because he's got a 27% win record. Tell me why. And then
it means nothing now, but if Frank Lampard walks into the Rangers dressing room and Philippe Clement walks into the Rangers dressing room, who gains the more immediate respect?
I don't know. When George Graham walked out of the Arsenal dressing room with the career that George had as a footballer, as a manager, and Arsene Wenger walked into the dressing room, maybe the same conversation happened there. Martin will be able to speak to this far more wisely than I will. It doesn't matter how much stature you have. If you open your mouth and the players don't buy into something, it doesn't matter what you've done. It matters what they think of you in that moment. I don't know. His win record looks relatively decent. So he comes in with some background that he's played in competitive leagues, managed competitive sides, played European football, done decent in the French league. I don't know his brand of football. I'd be fascinated to see the decision-making process and what Rangers are doing. Gerrard, Van Bronckhorst, Beale, and now this guy. What's in the thinking of the people in the boardroom? There's a consistent theme of the same people making these decisions. And I cannot see the logic behind Michael Beale. I don't see that, besides he was here once before.
I'll tell you something, Martin. Week before last, I was up in Scotland. Okay. Chris Boyd charity lunch. And the feeling then was this, amongst some of the Rangers diehards who were at that lunch. It was a good mixture of people. Your friend, Mr. Sutton, was there and was asking very kindly for you. The feeling amongst the Rangers support there that day was, it wasn't so much a question of should it be Clement, should it be Frank, or should it be Muscat. The question was, are those making the decision the right people to make the decision? Because of the very fact that Simon has just flagged up, these are the same people who thought that Beale was the answer, and clearly wasn't. There was a section of those people who thought Steven Gerrard was going to be very long-term the answer, and ultimately wasn't. So do you think the people at the top at Ibrox are truly qualified at this time? Because many of the fans didn't think so.
Well, I absolutely do not know that there. I don't know the people personally, but maybe that was the reason that they brought Graeme into the whole into the mix.
But then they bring him in, and he suggests Frank, and they don't go with it.
Well, when you're down to maybe one or two, then you might think, oh well, I you know what? Thank you very much, Graeme, for that there. But we want to be the ones that made the final decision in this year. That might have been a thought.
Interesting to see how involved. It does feel like a case of the blind leading the deaf to me at times. But it does feel that if you're going to get Souness involved, I don't know how involved Graeme was. I know that, but if you're going to interview these guys, you need a Souness in the room because the football capital and intellectual capital that he brings to the equation, from his understanding of the football club, the scale of the size of the expectation, but also Graeme's football expertise, whether people equate it to a time gone past. I don't. I think Graeme still speaks a lot of sense about the game of football. Then you've got to bring him into that equation. I wonder if they did, because I know the two candidates were Muscat and this fella. In terms of,
and a third,
and what
Lampard.
And Lampard. I don't know how live that was. I don't know how. I mean, obviously, if we're talking about Frank's got to the point where he's got a lot of money and doesn't need to do it, but the motivations were still there, then fine.
Of the three, he was the first to be eliminated from the race.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, nothing about Rangers when I sat in that boardroom told me that there was a lot of progressive thinking going on. With due respect to conversations I had with the owner, the chairman of the club, and his son privately offline, which I'm not going to repeat, but some of the stuff around some of the aspects of the idea that Cinch were going to sponsor the league and this guy's had a car dealership and they couldn't do this. And you look at it and think, when you get up to these football clubs, you see the scale of expectation. I get to sit next to John Gregg and talk to him about the idea of Rangers, and then you look around it and you think, I'm not sure you guys get it in the same way that possibly you should.
See, that's a good question Simon asked, and I think that's the very point, man.
But also, Jim, you have to, and there's no better example than across the table here about choosing managers.
Yep,
do you know what? Deep down at the end of it, you don't really know.
That's right.
You don't really know. You're going on something. For instance, like Graeme would have pointed them in the direction of. You've just said to me, Jim, that he pointed them in the direction of Frank, and I understand that. That is absolutely fine. And finally, people make decisions, but you don't really know. You genuinely don't until someone steps in.
Yeah.
I think that when I got the job at Celtic, Dermot Desmond had a number of choices at the time. I am absolutely delighted and honoured they picked me at the end of the day. He could have gone in another direction, and he didn't really know me. It didn't. That's the point. A bit of success at Leicester City and things that you see. Well, that's very nice of you to say that, Simon. But at the end of the day, but you don't really know, and you've made decisions on managers yourself somewhere along the way where you think, listen here, really good coach. You mentioned really good coach. Can he manage? I'll have to take that gamble.
That's right.
And it doesn't work for you.
That's right.
And you think, God, where did I go?
But it's also about eliminating risk. I mean, you can only minimise risk. You can't eliminate it. Right?
Yeah.
You can walk across the road, look left and right,
Correct.
and get run over.
Correct.
But give yourself the best opportunity to minimise the risk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, it wasn't Frank and it wasn't Muscat. It's hello, Philippe Clement, and good luck.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.